Hey everyone, welcome back to the SRC Ultimo Podcast. I'm Coco and I'm here with Ahmed and Liam Key. How you guys going?
Good, thank you. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
Liam, why don't you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do at the university?
Okay, sure. So my name is Liam Key and I'm the National Academic Coordinator for the Bachelor and Diplomas of 3D Design Animation, Film and Video, and UX and Web. So there's 3 courses that I'm kind of helping steer the academic and the staff and the curriculum for. It's kind of a catch-all role as well, so kind of anything to do with the course kind of ends up getting my eyes to glance over it. So it's a bit of a management role, a bit of an academic role as well. But yeah, trying to help steer it into a new direction and keep it modern and fresh.
We did just refresh the courses this year. I can imagine that would have taken a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, definitely. It did take a lot of time and effort. I know that very, very well. So probably about a year ago, we started writing. We proposed a new kind of structure for each of the bachelor courses, and in that we needed to update 22 subjects. So we then went through and updated each one individually, rewrote most of their curriculum, and we wrote a few new subjects as well to kind of patch in where there were gaps in industry and where there were gaps in the bachelor degree. So lots and lots and lots of course writing and academic development work. And now this year we started to roll out the new courses and kind of see and get a feel for what's working and what's not working. Because nothing's perfect straight away, so you've got to keep tweaking and keep improving.
What sort of got you into this, the academic industry in the first place?
Actually, strangely, about an hour ago, I got an email saying, congratulations on your 10 years here. So it's been maybe 10 years to the day, which is quite confronting. Yeah, that's one balloon goes up in the air. Actually, I did my bachelor degree in film and video at QT, and then I did my master's of interactive and visual design. And I was doing projection mapping. So I was doing 3D animation on buildings and doing that for a few little clients and a few projects and posting that online and just being a bit of a, not really a street artist, but just kind of just making cool stuff and, pushing the boundaries on what my practice was. And then I was approached by someone at Billy Blue in Brisbane, and they said, hey, you're doing some really cool work. You should come lecture here. And that was it. I just kind of started down that track, and then a bunch of other universities reached out, and so I was jumping around different universities in Brisbane, and then doing my own practice work on the side as well, and just being a bit of a bounty hunter, just jumping around. But I kind of fell into it, I guess, making cool work, ended up, I guess, opening a door to end up teaching some others how to do some cool stuff as well. So wasn't ever the plan, but ended up falling into here.
And so much of your work as well goes across quite a diverse range of areas. You mentioned you did your degree in film and video, and then you were doing projecting 3D animations onto buildings, and you did your master's in interactive design.
Yeah, it's been the wildest journey of like, what medium do I do? What type of content do I want to make? And actually, it's just very circular, but I think it's quite illuminating. It's like I started out wanting to make short films and like movies and loving movies. And then I realized, you know what? All of my short films are really, really bad. Why are they all so terrible and like embarrassingly bad? Like I can't even understand how someone is making something so positive and So then I was like, right, if I can't get a film, I need to just get one image, like a photograph, right? So I would be doing these like photographic compositions, just one frame. Can I make one frame look cool? And I still kind of really would struggle with that because I could only photograph or take images of what I had on hand, which might just be like a fan and a shoe and like, you know, some celery sticks in the fridge. Like there's not much hanging around my house. So what can I actually I want to draw it because that way there's no limit in that one frame of what I could create. There's no, I don't need a budget. I don't need anything. I can just make it. So I would do lots of Illustrator works, like in Photoshop kind of abstract stuff, just making things out of nothing, and playing with what that interpretation process means. And then was like, oh, but actually I want to make it move. I want to animate these things. So how do I do that? So then it's like, oh, okay, well, I've got to do it in 3D. So then start learning 3D. And then, so it's like every medium that I would engage with had an inherent limit as to what it could actually produce. And after you muck around for a while in that medium, you end up hitting that limit and it becomes very frustrating. And so you kind of want to bust through that. But unfortunately, what happens is you kind of have to just ditch that skill almost completely and relearn a new one in a new path to kind of be able to do it correctly. So maybe, you know, in Illustrator, you could extrude something in 3D, but you're never really going to make something in 3D. It's just quite handicapped. So yeah, then making things in 3D. And then I thought, oh my God, I want to make it interactive. Like I want to, if I move past it, I want it to trigger on its own. How do you do that? Oh my God, that's games. And like, that's gaming engines and like, and then it's like, oh, but I've got to learn I've got to learn programming. So then I go down programming. It's just on and on and on and on. And then, endlessly being quite bad at everything, you know, which is pretty normal, I think, but takes a lot of time to become a masterful or have any quality at any one of those things, and they take many years to get there. And I've only spent, you know, the foundational years probably at a lot of these fields, but what it has meant is that I can create works that probably blend between all of them pretty neatly and sweetly, but I'm not a master in any of them individually, which is just an outcome or a handicap of exploring lots. So yeah, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, game engines, and then I was doing physical hardware stuff with Arduinos and Node MCUs, and did this jellyfish thing with LED lights running everywhere that was triggered on the web, that was programmed, and actually, you know, soldering and sending electrical signals up into the jellyfish installation. That was a whole new angle or skill set that you had to kind of pick up as well. So yeah, lots of jumping around.
I'm sure that all of this though has kind of led to you being in the perfect position where you are now, to look after the development of these 3 courses for film, animation, and web, because they're all things that you've played around with yourself, and you've got, you know, I think you've probably got enough years in that to help us build our foundational skills.
Yeah, I think so. I think you need someone who's probably just covering all of the foundational enough, and then we've got our specialist lecturers who can push forward the specializations much deeper. But yeah, someone who's at least kind of had, you know, put in the hard fought, wasted time of exploring all the problems and the issues and the things that happen in these fields. Yeah, it's it's an interesting multidisciplinary role in itself, you know. So someone even who's not as specialized could also help steer it, you know. This
sort of areas that exist in between specializations and in between disciplines seems to interest you a lot. And I definitely saw it last trimester when we were doing our subject Beyond the Creative Industries, where that's sort of the whole subject is exploring those places where specializations come together and there's an overlap and opportunities that exist there. And even seeing it with your PhD topic, for example, where you're looking at visualizing using 3D animation, what's going on in your head.
Yeah, that's right. Two big topics there, and there's certainly an overlap between the two. So my topic was quite a strange topic, but if you dig in further, there's a really good reason why, or that I believe that it was valid and very interesting and worthwhile research. So my topic was new scientific methods to visualize N,N-dimethyltryptamine hallucinations. So it was kind of trying to use 3D animation in a psychology area that would help to visualize people's hallucinations that inherently can't be recorded because they're just in your head. And so what they have is this kind of block or limit as to how they can actually study this strange phenomena that happens with DMT hallucinations. And basically we were trying to use modern creative tech tools to kind of help support a psychology problem. But what it actually brought up was that there's this inherent limit in, this is what we do in design, is we kind of come up with an idea in our head. Like you all kind of probably have had a flash of inspiration before of something you want to make. You kind of see the finished result and then you work really hard in the software to kind of go back and make it. And so that's imagination. There's 4 kind of quadrants of mental imagery that I was really interested in. There's memory, something that you've seen, that you recall in your mind's eye. There's imagination, there's dreams, and there's hallucinations. And all 4 of those are kind of just an internal individual experience. But artists and designers and graphic designers and 3D animators are actually building their visions all the time. So they're very, very qualified and skilled at converting mental imagery onto screen. And it's the basis of invention. So if you think about how new things are invented in your mind, you come up with new ideas, innovation. Innovation and invention is the heart and pulse of our society. So, you know, how does a mathematician come up with the new string theory kind of theory? Well, they're visualizing and daydreaming and doodling on a piece of paper, and they kind of, in their mind's eye, they see this thing kind of coalesce and come together. And that moment is the most important kind of moment for humanity. It's how we keep building and developing new things. So if we can understand deeper and more about that moment, I think we'll be able to crack open a deeper understanding as to how we can do it more and more and better. So mental imagery is a well explored field in psychology, but this DMT hallucinations area is kind of a quirk that very extravagant and strange 3D worlds kind of emerge when people imbibe this DMT. And what it means is no one knows yet, so we're trying to kind of figure it out. But yeah, BCI, Beyond Creative Industries, was a subject that we wrote, and it was kind of an inspiration from some of the research and areas that I've been down, but it was a way for designers and scientists to kind of ideally kind of work together. And how can design influence science, and how does science influence design, and the interdisciplinary nature of that relationship. And really the goal was just to empower all new students to have that in the back of their mind, that they have more options in their career than just in a design outcome only, that there are many, many places that their skills are really relevant and really valuable. So it was a seed sprinkling subject, to sprinkle some seeds.
I think you mentioned that at one point you were doing safety videos for mines.
Yep.
So a great example of where you've taken that film and video skill and applied it to obviously not a film and video industry.
Correct. That's exactly right. I was doing short films on kids playing around with origami, and but then I was employed by BHP Billiton to go fly out to a mine to then walk around underground and film how to be safe at heights or in enclosed environments and all those sorts of things. So yeah, a safety aspect of film and video school, which certainly wasn't Hollywood, but it was a humble Hollywood, maybe.
I think talking back with your art, how does that process look like for you, and how do you kind of go about creating your pieces? And I think creating meaning for your artworks as well, and like your inspiration behind that. How does that look like for you?
Yeah, so you mean how do I make it, and also what is the meaning? Like, what's my idea with it?
Yeah.
Well, my art is I guess I was most interested less in like realistic representation of stuff and more trying to elicit hints of things. So there'd be like, all my work you kind of look at it at a glance and it looks like something, and then you kind of look a little bit further and it all dissolves away and there's nothing really there. It's just a bunch of weird shapes. This is for mostly the 2D stuff. But I think that's the most interesting one. The 3D stuff is very realistic. It's got the same kind of abstract hints in there. But it's these hints, and like subconscious triggers, like you feel like the thing's laughing, or it's like a sad bar, and then it kind of disappears, and then you kind of look again and it comes back again, and it's like these fringe edges of representation. I found that so fascinating, because I would be endlessly engaged with the piece, whereas if I drew something quite realistic, I'm not the best draftsman or drawer either, illustrator, so like that there's an inbuilt handicap in the ability to kind of capture. I can do it in 3D, but I can't draw it. Just something that's elusive, that skill set. But when I was perfect, I would get over it quickly, to be just frank. Like, I'd just be over the work. But if I had to keep looking at new things come and it goes and it slips, it's like a game that I'm playing with myself when I'm looking at the piece. And some works do it better than others. Like a lot of mine I was doing a work a night, and I did about 1,000 works when I was about maybe 18 or something, just for like 3 or 4 years, every single night without fail, maybe like from 10 to 2, 4-hour blitz. I would be with my good friend who I did my Bachelor with, and we'd just make work and talk about art every day. And you know, what's the meaning of it all? What's it all about? You know, trying to figure it out. But yeah, playing with edges and representation and hints of things, and trying to be innovative within the software, trying to make sure that the software my work doesn't look like the software. There's still hints in there that I don't like when I look back at the work. And a series of the 3D works were actually for a famous writer. So they were for a man called Rick Strassman, who wrote a book called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. So when I was doing my PhD, I ended up in conversations with him about what my PhD topic was about, and he kind of paid me to go develop a series of 3D works that were visual representations of what had happened in some of the scientific experiments that he ran. So there's like a gremlin, kind of cruising through a hallway. That was a written description of a patient who experienced that, and we tried to kind of capture that. Not all of it was from the corners or recesses of my mind. That some of them were from other people's corners and recesses as well.
Do you have a favorite piece at all?
That's a good question. There's so many. Maybe I forget their names as well. So I like Azkaban, Prayers to Azkaban. That's cool. And Midnight Guess is probably one of my favorite, actually, where there's like 3 ghosts kind of cruising through a dining room hall. It's kind of been up.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like such a messy kind of almost like Harry Potter-esque, like dining hall, all the things coming up, but there's nothing there, but it's all there, and that's why, so you make a mess and then you kind of include just a few elements to kind of ground it a bit more from just straight abstract, which can be quite disengaging.
And do you want to talk to us a little bit about Azkaban as well? You mentioned that was another one that you really liked.
Yeah. Look, what can you say? It's a bit strange. And I think that's the point. It's like, I'm interested, I've never really been into tarot cards, right? But people are into tarot cards, and I've started to really kind of get it. I think it's quite cool because it's like this, you have this idea that like whatever decision you make at the time is very meaningful, right? Like this moment right now is everything has happened up to this point, and there's meaning in this moment if you can see it, if you can detect it. So I had this series of like Play-Doh works, Blue Tack works actually, where I was so convinced that you could just, whatever decision I'd make was perfect at every point. So like, not egotistically, but like just that, the work would just kind of come out. So I'd just go with the Blue Tack, like da 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 da, and then that would be the work. And I'd take a photo of it and it would be incredible, like just infinite folds and knots and hooks and twists and curves and like the most complex shape I couldn't design it if I tried. And yet when I just removed enough of myself to let the world kind of come through more, that was when the best work came. When I stopped trying to be me as the big artist man to like just let the thing trickle through how it wanted to. So it's like a game you're playing with yourself as to like how much are you trying to be the thing, and then how much is it just coming through. And so Prayers to Azkaban is like, I wouldn't normally make those decisions, but it just, maybe that day it was like, you know what, it needs some like walking hands, and maybe there's a flower pot over here, like it's just kind of, yeah, that's right, that's what it should be, and let it be what it wanted to be.
So let the art create itself.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's something really in that.
And you sell a lot of your artwork as well as NFTs. Do you want to just give us a brief description of what that is?
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. Yeah, I mean, I certainly haven't sold many of my works. So just be super clear, I haven't sold many of them, but I have, maybe about 6-12 months ago, I was like, oh my God, I'm really going to go down this NFT route because I think that's a really, really interesting development. So I was following the crypto stuff prior to that, was very keenly interested, not very heavily invested, but very keenly interested. And the NFT is a really natural extension of that domain. And to be honest, most of these works to be honest, I don't even think I've got the right dates on a lot of these works. I've just kind of made a lot of it up because it was a long time ago, and I've been carrying around this suitcase of JPEGs for like 10 years or longer, maybe 15 years. And I don't know what to do with them. Like, they're just kind of stuck on a website somewhere. And now people want to buy JPEGs. I thought, well, hang on, I've got a whole damn suitcase of these JPEGs. Maybe I should just be an NFT artist. And they're work. So they capture a moment. They're an original piece of idea at something. But for digital artists, and particularly for even people in this, in the 3D degree or in graphic design, this is a really exciting time for selling digital art. No one knows what's going on right now. It's just like super weird territory. And nobody at the top's making decisions. This is really pretty reactionary, grassroots kind of move. Not really grassroots, but just an alternative agenda happening here with NFTs. So I started minting a bunch of mine, putting them on Ethereum network, putting them on Rarible. So I've got them on Rarible right now. I applied for super rare, but they never really even opened the invitation I could see. Some of mine are on OpenSeas, and there's probably going to be some movement happening soon with some more exciting areas in NFT with my work. But I think it's really cool, and it's just a trading of art, really. It's a new art market, and if anyone's engaged with the art markets that were around, like bricks and mortar in stores with people they were really, really, I didn't enjoy them, to say the least. People would charge 40% of your sale to just put it on a wall, and it's a very kind of strange area to be selling your artwork. And then if you're not you're either as an artist or you're a designer where you're making it for Coca-Cola or BMW and you make a cool work for them, but it's not yours, and so you don't get to be as innovative as you perhaps like. So there was no outlet. That's why I stopped doing art as being an artist, I need to find commercial work, so I'll go into design. But now that there's this other digital asset driven economy for artworks, I find that very, very fascinating. And I think we're really only at the beginning. I think people have been doing this for a long time with things like skins on computer games, buying a Fortnite skin or buying a skin on Counter-Strike or something like that. Digital assets are just going to continue to explode over a long period of time, because we're just so enmeshed in the digital world that the digital world won't go away, and people are sick of buying, couches from Amart. They'd rather buy something really cool for their Twitter account, have the coolest avatar or profile. Kids can't be bothered buying a BMW car anymore. They'd rather buy the sweetest, dankest meme as an NFT, and be the one who owns some strange JPEG, So I think it's a really, really, really interesting territory, and I think anyone listening to this now, they should be open and go explore it. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, we're sort of still at the beginnings of it, because that big explosion for NFTs didn't really happen till last year. And now it's just sort of really pushing. So there's no better time than now to sort of dig into it a little bit and find out what it's all about.
Yeah, I certainly think there was I remember last year there was a massive spike. It all just kind of exploded, the NFT thing. And I was kind of at that point oh, this is the time. And then it all just died off for about 6 months or something. Maybe I got the dates wrong, but a big just nosedive complete. Everyone was over it. It's like, no, these are just JPEGs. What are you doing? This is absolutely ludicrous to pay any money for it. And then the second wind happens, right? And then I don't know what happened, but something's happened, and suddenly NFTs are huge again. And that's pretty normal in emerging new markets, right? Where there's this huge initial spike, and then people doubt the kind of legitimacy of that product, so it crashes again. But then kind of it restabilizes at a level that was above zero. So it's worth something, but it's maybe not worth $1 million, but it's somewhere in between. So yeah, now it's finding its feet. So no one really knows what anything's worth.
It's kind of exciting to to watch another sort of area of the digital world start to sort of form and shape. I know for my generation, for example, you guys were really there when the internet became a thing and took off. We weren't. We sort of came into it when it was already a thing, or at least me in particular, sort of our age group. And so it's exciting to see another sort of this new area sort of pivot off cryptocurrency and sort of NFTs and all this interesting stuff. And there's obviously even more to come, because now you've got all this cloud-based stuff that started happening, and VR and AR and all those sorts of areas that are just sort of so many new mediums and so many new areas to explore.
Yeah. And I tell you what, the biggest trick I can teach you is like, you know, that old adage of like the revolution will not be televised, because it will appear like nothing. And that's the sign, is you never get the memo for it to go, oh no, this is going to be a big thing. And you're like, oh, thank God, now I can trust in it, right? It's always risky, because you're like, oh, I don't know, is it or is it not? Like, I don't really believe in it, or maybe you do believe in it, but there's just no clear indication what the revolutionary thing will be, or what the next emerging big thing will be. It's always mysterious, and it comes out of the depths and creeps up, and you don't really want to engage because it's clearly not a big thing. But that's kind of the time to get a whiff of it and go, oh, actually, I'm going to lean into that. Yeah, all of our traditional markets and all of our traditional job opportunities are radically changing under our nose, and we need to be very, very savvy and not rely on traditional, only traditional things. Everything's getting disrupted. No one's safe, no industry's safe. So just keep fluid and keep moving, and don't hold on to what your idea of what you thought your future or what your work or marketplace would be. Let it decide. It's the same thing that it's doing with my art. It's like, no, don't try and hold on. You'll screw it up. So just let it, watch it, let it happen, let it decide, because it will anyway.
You don't get a choice, so you may as well hold on for the ride.
Yes, yeah. That's right.
And it's especially in our industry, in design, is where there is so much fluidity, and especially in tech, it's not a discipline that I would describe as stable, or I don't want to say not stable's not the right word, but I think you know what I mean.
You have to constantly be adapting.
You could just list 10 things that are disrupting just visual design right now, right? Like even AI stuff. Like, there's like a mix and match character website that's out there where you just put two images together and it automatically creates a third unique one with blendable qualities. And that would produce trillions of new artworks like every day, and you don't do anything. And it's just, so I don't know, like I've seen others where you type, a dog sitting on a bench with a flower pot next to it, and you just type it in and kind of, or AI develops that image for you. Maybe this is a cool segue, but even in my PhD, part of my research was I was doing EEG. I bought an EEG headset. So I had 32 channels that were measuring the electrical waves every time I thought a thought. And I started programming it to try to automatically draw on screen what I was seeing in my head. So when I thought of a rose, I trained it to detect that certain type of 32 patterns of activity was a rose. And so my end goal was just to kind of like see an image in my mind's eye and then to transfer it directly to the screen automatically, no interference at all. And if you think about it, like Photoshop and Illustrator, and they're so dumb, these like programs, they're like, oh no, you're on a new layer, like go to the rubbish bin and like click on the thing, and that's a white arrow, like you got to go to the black arrow. Like it's just so like intensively complex, and intuitively we can see it in here, but we can't get it on here. And like eventually there will be tech that will quite efficiently transfer images across, just like typing a sentence or combining two others. I can foresee that happening, because no new tech is actually required. It's just actually better software that's written. It's interesting.
I suppose we'll lead on now to a project that you've been working on for a while now, and almost saw the light of day this year. But obviously, world events happened. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, so maybe about a year. What's it now? Maybe about a year and a half ago, I started a project that's going to be a live laser show, where I make all the music, where I make all of the 3D animation, and then I do something that I've never seen done before anywhere else. So it's the first time in the world that I've ever seen this been done before, and it's quite neatly builds on things I've done before. So it's projection mapping, and then I shoot real lasers onto a giant screen, and the animation that I produce will react to getting hit by the laser. So it's projection mapping with lasers, I guess. But I'm going to do that in a big live show. And I've been spending about a year and a half on it. It's a very long project. A lot of some time in between has just been too busy with work or something like that. But so I've half of my house is just stacked with stuff. Like I have many strobe machines. So there's strobe lights, there's smoke machines. I've got 3 big lasers. I've got tunnel lasers that come out, and then projectors and stands and all this kind of actual physical equipment to make the show happen. But it's going to be about a 20-minute show with about 20 different 3D scenes that are all done in real time in Unreal. So I model everything in actually Cinema 4D, and then texture it in Substance, and then maybe some in ZBrush a little bit, but not much, and then put it all in Unreal, and then send all that out, and then map it all onto a master show timeline, and it'll be a kind of 20-minute performance. So there'll be things like a balloon might like cruise up in the air, and then a real laser pop the balloon, but with like an Aphex Twin kind of edge that's quite serious. So like lots of like, there'll be tens of thousands of impact points where the lasers hit. And they're like lots of ideas like cruising through the river, like rivers and mountains, and a fish will pop out of the river, and you shoot the fish and it turns into like skeleton fish bones, and then all the bones kind of like disappear. So all these fish getting shot jumping out of the river, like going through tunnels, and like there'll be locks on the tunnel and you shoot the lock and it opens the door. Like dead wood, you hit it and it turns on fire. Just picking up rocks, moving them around, and lots of interesting ways to what can you do then with that new medium of a physical thing affecting the digital. So I'm really excited for that. I'm going to hire out a theater, put it on, and I saw a concept by Flying Lotus. I don't know if you know Flying Lotus, but he's a very cool artist, and he was in Brisbane about a year and a half ago, and I saw his 3D show where he had 3D. You wore 3D glasses for the whole show, and this I was so inspired. I thought, I want to do something really, really cool, and then I want to show Flying Lotus, and I want him to do it at his show. So that's my real goal, is to do the show, record it, make a really good video, and then send it to Flying Lotus and see if he wants to do it at his show.
That sounds exciting.
Maybe sometime this year, maybe about next year, maybe about 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Amazing.
And you're doing all of the music and the animation and the projection mapping all yourself from scratch?
Yep. Everything's from scratch. So all music. I'm not the best with music, but I'm giving it a fair crack. My friend's quite talented, so he's helping kind of point me in the right direction as well, and saying probably a little bit more work on that one, and building everything from scratch. And then so there's a lot of things.
Is there anything you don't do?
There's plenty. I don't draw for sure. Can't do interior design or fashion. Absolutely.
We have some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
We used to time these, but I'm not going to do that because I never finish on time. But the first one is, if you had the opportunity to go out to outer space, would you? And why or why not?
Absolutely, I'd definitely go. And I just want to experience it, I just want to be... Experience is everything. So I want to experience, what is it like? Yeah.
Is there anything you're currently reading? What is it about?
I'm reading Chaos by James Gleick, and it's the amazing science of the unpredictable. So it's one of the best books I've ever read, and it's about fractals and non-pattern patterns. So strange stuff. Very cool.
If you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Maybe like red duck curry. Like red lychee duck curry forever.
What was your dream job when you were a child?
Dream job. Maybe like a park ranger or something, like just walking around the forest and driving in a little Jeep, like Jurassic Park. That's what I kept thinking of for a long time.
And the last one is, what is one thing about you that tends to surprise people?
I've never been overseas.
Really?
So surprising, isn't it, Coco?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been to like Melbourne once and Sydney a couple of times, and that's it. Never been anywhere.
Wow. And that's the questions.
I think we'll wrap up the episode there. Thank you so much for talking with us, Liam. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.